All right, the other day I reviewed something called The Language of Love, and because there were so many unanswered questions from that first one, it begged for a sequel. This is more about the language of love. Let's watch. Our movie starts with a discussion about homosexuality. It's interesting that they seem to basically say, even in 1970, that homosexuals are born that way. Anyway, after talking about homosexuals, we have to see the homosexuals in action. Here we see them carousing in a cafe, restaurant, disco, club. We start out focusing on the male aspect of homosexuality here. Apparently they like ice cream cones. Hey, wait a minute, I like ice cream cones. Here we see homosexuals cooking chicken. What a great film. And of course, after a lovely chicken dinner with wine, thoughts turn to sex. And we see the two of them have sex. So anyway, after showing us some scenes that I cannot show you on YouTube, it shows us that they're just like a regular normal couple who just happen to be gay. Not to be outdone, we then see the women aspect of homosexuality. And we go to an all-girls club here where lesbians come to meet. I guess these two are a couple. Or at the very least, they're going home together. I can't really show you anything about what they're doing, but trust me, it's pretty nice to watch. She seems to be having a good time anyway. Then we dip right into his discussion about gonorrhea and syphilis. And like everything else in this movie, after they discuss it, they show us. You don't want to see this, trust me. So that guy had gonorrhea, and it was a nasty sight. But thankfully there's a cure.
De patienter som tidigare fått allergiska reaktioner av penicillin får istället annan typ av antibiotika.
Now here's a woman who has gonorrhea. We never see her face, but he has to interview her about her sexual partners, and she gives it up. Torny Svensson. So Torny Svensson, wherever you are, you've been outed in a Swedish documentary. there's a discussion here about blind children and how they get exposed to sex education. Apparently you get these giant phallic-looking things, and you teach them to touch them to learn their shape and feel. That's an odd thing. Not to be sexist, they do have plastic vaginas too. In this outrageous scene, we have a blind school, and we have a nude male and female at the front of the class, and the students are invited to feel them up, just to basically understand the shape and feel of the male and female genitalia. And trust me when I tell you, they touch them everywhere. Here's a handicapped woman who has no use of her arms, so he needs a boyfriend to help her. Now we dive right into a discussion about transvestites. It's a great conversation starter. Of course, they then show us the transvestite getting dressed. Pantyhose, dress, bra, the whole works. Now we jump into the movement of pornography, and see a couple of magazine editors talking about the photos they've taken. Really, really dirty magazines, let me tell you. We're then treated to a photo shoot. Then we watch an audience that's watching a live sex show take place on some stage somewhere. And here they talk about how people who masturbate are very happy. Shocker.
Ja, just det där med lusten och lustkänslan är väl någonting som vi ofta glömmer bort när det rör sig om sexupplysningar.
Our movie finishes while we see another couple in the throes of passion. Alright, I literally just finished watching more about The Language of Love. Okay, it's a Swedish sex documentary, a sequel to The Language of Love, featuring some of the same sex counselor experts who were in the first one. And this one, they touch on subjects like homosexuality, they touch on people with handicaps having sex, they talk about blind people having sex and experiencing things, they talk about transvestites, they talk about all kinds of things in this movie. And one thing I must say, they really kind of were progressive or ahead of their time. They're talking about homosexuality in the beginning of this movie, talking about how basically you're born that way, which is the belief today. But of course, in 1970 or whenever this thing came out, it wasn't quite the case, but I guess it was then. There was some weird stuff in this movie. First of all, there's some hardcore stuff in this movie. There's people having sex. There's a lot of oral sex going on both ways, always, and it's very, very graphic for a documentary. I guess you can get away with that in a documentary. So yeah, there is some actual hardcore pornography in this stuff. A lot of hairy people too. A lot less hair these days, but back then, nope, no shame at all. So what I also thought was really weird in this, there's some scenes where some blind people are being taught like they're being shown or taught what the genitals of the opposite sex feels like. So there's this male model and this female model standing in a classroom. They're both totally naked. And then they have all these, I don't think they're kids. They might be adolescents still, but they come up and get to feel the actual body parts, the genitals. It's just a weird thing. It's like, wow, that's a hell of a gig. How do you get that one? That might be a good gig for me if I could get that job. Cool, right? So anyway, again, just like the first one, there's just a lot of, they talk about certain things and then we see them played out by real people, real transvestite who we watch get dressed, go out on the town. We see real homosexuals having homosexual love and acts, and we see real handicapped people having sex. It's just, yeah. Anyway, I bought this Swedish erotica collection for the Christina Lindberg movies that are on there, but I also got stuck with 3 documentaries about sex from Sweden. So I'm determined I'm gonna get it through all 3 of them, and then we'll get to the good stuff, right? So anyway, it's on the Swedish erotica collection. This is more about the language of love. Oh Lord, PAL DVD set. This one is actually in Swedish. There are subtitles. You have to read this movie. There's no other options. No audio English soundtrack. So anyway, if you've seen this thing, you haven't. But let me know if you have. Leave some comments down below. We'll talk about it. More about the language of love.